Hello and welcome. You're about to listen to an interview with Oliver Quintanilla. Oliver is the director of the movie Little Saints, which came out a good minute ago in 2014. Oliver made a movie about the Valeda ceremony of the Mazteca people in Oaxaca, Mexico. It is an indigenous mushroom ceremony, psilocybin mushroom ceremony that has indigenous elements, but also infused with Catholic saints and deities and practices. In a way, it seems that the psilocybin Valeda ceremony has kind of evolved into a Eucharist. I first watched the movie and was really grateful to Oliver for making the movie, for kind of showing the Valeda in movie form. I'm a psychotherapist by training, and our model for working with psilocybin mushrooms is blindfolded with music, with a guide sitting there. If someone gets stuck or needs to talk, but it's really kind of in the music and the blindfold that the healing happens. But when you look at the indigenous practice, it's more of a relational practice where the individual is in front of an altar, and the healer, in this case, Natalia Martinez, she's guiding the experience, involved, maybe even using touch and talking to you through it. So for me, it was just really beautiful to see this other way of working with the psilocybin mushrooms as a healer, and the kind of healing context that's very different from the kind of emerging Western model. So Oliver and I talk for a bit. We talk about his initial experiences with the mushrooms and his journey in finding Natalia, which was kind of this cool synchronistic journey. And then it took him many years to gain Natalia's trust, and then he makes this movie that takes more years to make. So it was a long journey for Oliver that he talks about. And then we touch on what Oliver's been up to since the movie was released, kind of both becoming a figure within the sort of psychedelic renaissance, sharing stage with kind of well-known psychonauts like Dennis McKenna, and then where he's at now of starting a foundation to support Mazteca youth in education, teaching them English, media skills, but most importantly, teaching them the Mazteca language. Because it is an oral tradition, from what I understand, and in order for an oral tradition to be transmitted, you got to speak the language. So in a way, he's trying to preserve the tradition that, has been of benefit to him, which I really appreciate. So I do hope you enjoy this interview. And if you're interested, I would check out the links to see what Oliver is up to next with his foundation. And I got to make one edit or correction here. Kind of about 20 minutes in, I say George Wasson, who is like one of the early sort of mycologists, amateur mycologists that kind of for the West discovered psilocybin mushrooms. And his real name is Gordon Wasson, not George. So I was mistaken in my psychedelic history. But yeah, do enjoy this interview. I appreciate you listening. Hope you're doing well. Thank you. Thank you, Oliver, for doing this. I've been looking forward to talking to you for quite a while. I think we've been emailing, I don't know, like 9 months, it feels like maybe, and trying to find a time. So I'm really happy we
Right.
kind of got to sit here and can meet, So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure.
Yeah. So I just usually start with a quick moment of silence, just, helps me calm my nerves. And for anyone that's listening, they can kind of join us in silence for a moment too. So, yeah. So when I first reached out to you, I had just watched your movie, Little Saints, and I was so grateful for the movie. I'm like a psychotherapist by training, and there's this like large movement towards psilocybin therapy. I'm in Oregon, where like laws have been passed, and like the model, right, of kind of as developed by Stan Groff, who's in your movie, right, of like blindfold with listening to music. Like that's what I thought of mushrooms. And then I watched your movie, and it's something very different that's practiced in Oaxaca, right? And
Right.
I'm kind of curious for you, like when you were younger, what called you to go look for the mushrooms? I don't know if that's the right way of saying it, but like
Mhm.
what brought you into like hunting out the mushrooms?
Right. Well, the very first time I took mushrooms was in Santa Barbara, California.
Yeah, yeah. With a very
I
nice place to take mushrooms, right? I mean,
Yes, I went for a hike at a place called Knapp's Castle,
uh-huh.
and it's some castle in ruins. And as I was getting there with a couple of friends, we ran into a group of students from UCSB, and they were doing mushrooms that night, and they just offered us to take them with them. And that was my first time ever taking them. It was a very revealing experience about like why I left my hometown to come to Los Angeles, my purpose in life, the universe, God, nature, all kinds of things
You had
started being revealed
that
that
opening
night.
experience, sort of.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was really curious about it because I've heard about Maria Sabina, of course,
Mm-hmm.
before.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of the mushrooms in Oaxaca, but never really paid too much attention to it. It's like one of those weird things the indigenous people do
And is
up on
that
the
when you
hills.
when you were in Mexico, you kind of had awareness of the practices in Oaxaca,
I,
or?
I had awareness of the mushroom and the practice in Oaxaca and Maria Sabina as
Yeah.
a healer, but I didn't know anything about it, anything else about what the methods, the circumstances, the way they were used. I did not know anything about it. It was just like a weird thing that the indigenous people do up on the hill, like I just said. And it's
Yeah.
not until I took them for the first time that I'm like, oh wow, this
Yeah.
is not. Uh, uh, I mean, I wouldn't consider it a drug to use it to have fun necessarily.
Yeah, I used to try
Uh,
to do that when I was younger. I never had fun. It was always
right.
hard in a good way, but they
Yes.
make you work.
So for me, it was revealing, very revealing that night. And it just sparked my curiosity about it. And when I came back to Los Angeles the next day, the very first thing I did is go online and start researching about it. But this was the year 1997,
Mm-hmm.
and the internet was very limited back then.
Yeah, Google
And there was
Google
not,
wasn't the same in '97, right?
of course not, and there was not a lot of information about it. But what I did find out is about this guy named Gordon Wasson.
Yeah. So
Uh,
you did like you went back to the original history in a way, at least in the West, right? Of Gordon Wasson,
right,
kind of going finding
right,
Maria Sabina, the publication of the Life magazine, and yeah.
right, all that information. So I found at the downtown Los Angeles library, they have all the books from Gordon Wasson. They have all his books there. So only for consultation, they don't allow you to take them home. So I will go there, make photocopies, or read inside the library and just stay there the whole day reading the book.
Yeah.
Um, it sparked my curiosity, and that's how I found out about the town, Huautla de Jimenez. It was the first time I was hearing about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to,
And that's the
again, to
town
the
Marina
internet.
Sabina is from, right? And
Exactly the
yeah.
same town where Maria Sabina is from, in the north part of the state of Oaxaca. So I went back online and tried to find that town on a map, and I could not find it in any map.
I love that.
But I knew it was in Oaxaca.
Yeah.
So what I did is like 2 days later or 3 days later, my roommate walks into my house with one of his coworkers or business partners. I don't remember what it was. And it turns out that this guy that came to my apartment, he's from Oaxaca. and he needed someone to go to Oaxaca for him, for his company, and deliver some things. Do you want to go? And I'm like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity to go to Oaxaca. He's going to pay my ticket. He's even going to pay me to deliver these documents to whoever down there. And he's going to pay for my flight back. So it's like, this is like, you know.
Yeah, how could it be any better in a way?
If I will believe in coincidences, it was a great coincidence. But I know it was meant to be, and it was sent to me in a way for me to be able to go. So I took the offer, and he said, actually, one of my employees in Oaxaca, he's from Huautla. So as soon as you get there, get in touch with him. This is his name. He's going to tell you how to get to his town. So that's what I did. I went, I met with the guy, and he said, yeah, go here, go there, buy your ticket, and then they will take you.
Yeah.
So I went there. I didn't know if it was north, south, or anything, but as we were approaching and going, I realized we were going to the north part of the state. And then when I got there, this is pre smartphones. So the people they're still not with their heads down all the time like it is today.
Yeah, people can.
Back then, they're still looking at whoever arrives into town and everything. So also back then, most of them, they're still dressing with the traditional clothing. Nowadays, it's like everything's more modern, and everyone owns like their own cell phone. Everybody's on WhatsApp and Facebook and Instagram and all that, you know. So that changed the culture.
And you watched that change over time, I imagine, kind of
from
when you went.
100%.
Yeah,
it's pretty evident that there is less and less kids studying their own language.
Yeah,
and that's
really witnessing the modernization. But at this point, you go there, there's still the sense of
this point
traditional.
Mostly everyone speaks Mazatec. It was kind of rare to hear Spanish.
That must be so interesting when you're in Mexico, right? Like coming from Mexico and being somewhere there and feeling sort of out of place.
I felt like a foreigner in my own country.
Yeah.
100%. That was the feeling I got.
Yeah.
Once I got there and I went to the main plaza, the city center or the center of the town, I started looking at people to see who could I ask, because nobody will come and talk to me. Nobody was like approaching me or like nothing. It was like used to be strange feeling, you know. So I see this kid that is playing video games at this like store or something, like a video game arcade or something. And then he gets out of the place and starts playing the guitar right there on the sidewalk. And I'm like, oh, this kid seems like, I don't know. I felt safe asking him, you know. And I asked him, and he was dressed, I remember very clearly, because he was wearing a pair of black Converse, a pair of Levi's, and a white t-shirt. So he looked like he was from Mexico City or something, not from a small town in the middle of the mountain. And then when I spoke to him for the first time, he had a Mexico City accent a little bit too, right?
Oh, yeah, you heard that in there.
Yeah, so I asked him if he could, I told him that I was looking for mushrooms. And he said, I have some in my house. You can come and eat them and stay there. And I'm like, well, thank you, but what I'm really looking is for a curandera or curandero, for a healer. And he says, oh, you want velada, which translates to soiree.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, I've never heard the term in that context, but I knew what he was talking about. So I said, yes, I'm looking for that. He said, I'm going to take you to my grandmother, Natalia, up there.
Well, that's beautiful, right? Because I mean, Natalia is the healer in your movie, right? So the first person you talk to brings you to her. So yeah.
So we go to her house, and then he tells me, wait here. They don't like it when I bring strangers.
This has happened before.
Right. So I stayed by the sidewalk, by the little road, and he went in. About 5 minutes later, he comes out and says, it's like, oh, the lady cannot do it because she already had dinner. Okay, so what do we do now? And he says, I'm going to take you to my aunt down there by the market. And then as we're getting ready to leave, the lady, Natalia, came out of her house with her son and her grandson. Three of them come out. At that moment, I got really surprised because the kid that had the Mexico City accent, he was 100% fluent in Mazatec. So it caught my attention because I am bilingual. He's also bilingual, right? But I'm Spanish English, he's Spanish Mazatec. And I find that usually people that know multiple languages, there's people that are skilled, mentally skilled to be able to learn more than one language. And I appreciated that when I heard him speak so fluently in that indigenous language. I was surprised and I was impressed at the same time.
That he could kind of live in both worlds.
Say that again?
He could live in both worlds, like with his grandma and with the Levi's and the Converse.
Right. Yeah. Now her grandma, it's not really her grandma. He used to say my grandma.
Oh, okay.
Because it's an older lady, but it's not really blood related, this kid.
Yeah.
So, and then he asked me to give him some money prior to take me. So I did give him some money. And at that moment, when they're speaking and talking between them, basically the lady Natalia asked me, is it okay with you if we have the ceremony, but I do not eat the mushrooms? And I'm like, first, I did not know you will also eat the mushrooms. That's one. Second, I don't think I could force you to eat them. It doesn't seem right either. But if you say that you're going to guide me and be with me throughout the experience, then let's do it. Let's do it that way.
So did you end up doing it that night? Was it that?
So that same night.
Oh man, that's like it's not. There's no internet. There's no smartphones, but it's happening so fast in a way, right? Like,
well,
just that.
She has the same. She has the same question. It's like she say, like, yesterday you were in Los Angeles, in another country, and today you're knocking on my door. How did you get here? How did you find me? She asked me. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. It just happened. It happened that way.
Yeah, from reading George Watson in some books, right, to like being at the doorstep. That's
right. And at that time, I also didn't know exactly where I was, because I couldn't find it on the map. So I was not exactly sure where I was. And I'm like, let's just do it here, because if I go somewhere else, it's already getting dark. If something happens to me, no one's gonna know except the guy that paid for my flight. That he's not even my friend. I just met him. He doesn't know anybody else that knows me. So I'll probably disappear and nobody will find me if something happens to me, right? And I had that like kind of fear of being there because it's like different, and it could be. I mean, I don't feel that way right now anymore. But at the time it felt like dangerous going there. So then we talked, and she asked me a bunch of questions, if I'd taken them before, how many I took, where I was from, my parents, if I have brothers and sisters.
She wanted a sense of your family in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
And then she asked me to go relax and go lay in bed and try to take a nap before the ceremony, that it was going to start at 9 p.m. and it was like 7 p.m.
Yeah.
So to make the long story short, I took the mushrooms, a little bit scared of being there with strangers. And as the mushrooms took effect, I was able to see that all of them were good people and that I was safe. I was in safe hands. I realized immediately. And then I started laughing at myself.
For being afraid earlier?
Because I'm such an idiot. Why am I afraid? They should be afraid. I'm like double their height. And they're bringing me into their house.
You know, like they're opening, if anyone should be afraid,
yes. If anyone should be afraid, it's them, not me. You know. So, and that was how it started. The next morning, I asked her that I wanted to make a movie about it. She turned around and walked away with a face that clearly showed that she was mad at the question, that she didn't like the question.
Well, there's a long history there in a way, right? With Maria Sabina and George Wasson sort of releasing photos and a lot of sort of negative attention toward that region. So I was surprised in a way she says yes, right, later on, kind of given the history.
Well, it took 5 years for her to say yes.
Yeah, you find her in one day, but then 5 years to say yes.
Yes, exactly.
Did you know you wanted to
want to be videotaped?
Yeah, did you know you wanted to make a movie before that ceremony? Or like, when did you know you wanted to catch it in a film?
I wanted to make a movie since I was like 16 years old.
Okay, so you've been waiting to make a movie in a way, and this is like becomes clear.
Finding the subject, like, and I didn't even know if it was going to be a documentary film. It could have been fiction.
Yeah.
But when I had that experience, it became to me very evident that was actually, it was on my first in Santa Barbara, where I actually decided that I was going to make a movie about that subject.
Oh, like that night that you took the mushrooms in Santa Barbara.
In Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
I decided that I was going to make a movie about that particular subject.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did it.
Yeah. What was that first ceremony like for you? Was anything surprising about it? Going from kind of taking it from some kids, college kids with your buddies, to kind of being in front of the altar and in that more.
Yeah. It was unexpected to me because I was raised Catholic.
Yeah.
I went to La Salle school, elementary and middle school. And then I had a lot of questioning to my teachers and to the brothers, to the La Salle brothers and sisters. You know, I will question, you know, the existence of God, the church, the Pope, and blah blah blah. And I was in middle school on my last year of middle school. And they asked me to enroll at a different high school.
Oh, you were asked not to come back the next year. Too many questions. Questions.
They say that it was better for me to be at a non-religious school.
Yeah.
So I switched to non-religious high school.
Yeah.
And that was the end of it. And then when I go back to Huautla, to my surprise, the altar is 100% Catholic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I think when people think of like indigenous psychedelic use, right, they don't think of it being Christian. But like watching the movie and knowing Maria Sabina too, taking the mushrooms as a Eucharist, right, that this is a very Christian ceremony in a way. I mean, it's syncretic, right? It's blending of kind of Catholicism and the indigenous, but the forward face looks Christian. Like, I was very surprised watching the movie, like, oh wow, this is like a very beautiful Christian psychedelic ceremony.
It is. Yeah. It is. I had a lot of conversations with the local priest.
Yeah.
At the time, he's not there anymore, unfortunately, because he was very well liked, and is the priest in the movie. So
and he's delightful in the movie, right? This wonderful priest.
Yes, I had several meetings with him in addition to the one with the interview after the movie, and it's always so great talking to him, because it's funny, when I went to that when I interviewed him for the first time, I went to the interview thinking that it was going to be a huge fight,
Yeah.
between me and him.
Like having the counter voice in the movie, right? Of like more
Yes.
Catholic.
But that did not happen.
He
He was in full support, to my surprise.
Yeah. But what was it like? And for you, right? That first night that you're sitting there in front of the altar and the saints are invoked, Jesus, Mother Mary, like, how was that coming from Catholicism?
It was difficult.
Yeah, I imagine.
It was difficult.
Yeah.
I had resistance to all those imagery, to everything. I was resistant to pray and to just to the whole thing, And then after meeting with the priest several times, it became evident that the indigenous people see, for example, Saint Isidore, right? Saint Isidore is known to be a man that owned cattle, owned ranches. He had money and he shared his money with the community. And the cattle is important because, and then also Saint Isidore's day of celebration is 15th of May. Okay, so around that time of the year is when the mushroom season starts. Now, the Psilocybe cubensis, that mushroom that grows on cow excrement is called Saint Isidore, San Isidro.
Oh, yeah. So there's this way that are you saying in a way like the tradition had to survive in Catholicism, and
they try to? What I'm saying is that if the church presents, here is Saint Isidore.
Yeah,
this is Saint Isidore. Oh, who's Saint Isidore? What does he do? Oh, he owned cattle and he shared his riches with the people, and so the mushroom is related to the cattle, and it also
and the riches.
It's a way to share the riches.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So there is that connection with that's just one example of many examples where a Catholic saint or a Catholic teaching or Christian teaching is interpreted from the perspective of the indigenous traditions and beliefs.
Yeah. Like it's from their lens, they're interpreting Catholicism and almost bringing it into some of their perspective, rather than adopting just the Catholic view and discarding their own view. Exactly. Yeah.
So the problem is when the Catholic Church says, here is this saint, and then you need to get rid of your saint. Yeah. That does not work. The indigenous people will say, no. Yeah. I'll take your saint and I keep my saint, because the more saints I have, the more protected I am.
Yeah, like I got a bigger family, bigger army. Yeah. No, I love the priest saying like that. Like Natalia as a healer was better than him because she had the Catholic saints and then the indigenous saints, and he only had the Catholic saints.
Right.
Like that was really beautiful to hear him acknowledge that, he was missing something in a way. Yeah. So that did your resistance fade over time? Did it change like your relationship?
Yeah, 100%. As soon as I started like making the connections and connecting the dots between the Catholic teachings and Christian teachings that I already knew, because I grew up that way.
Yeah, they were beat into you probably almost, right?
And as I learned more from the traditions of the Mazatecs and their belief system and everything, I started connecting one thing to the other and seeing the, is kind of comparing one religion to another and realizing that it's the same thing. A lot of the things that are from one religion and another, one tradition, they have the same meaning as in the other tradition.
Yeah.
So I think because of that, my resistance started fading, and also being able to see, for example, how the story of Lady of Guadalupe comes from Tonantzin, which is an indigenous goddess, and how like it evolved over time and was changed or replaced by the Catholics and like that. There's many things that through time, I started learning and becoming more accepting of the meaning behind every single image and what it means. And I believe that if a lot of people pray to one thing, that thing acquires some sort of like a lot of energy from everyone's prayers, and it becomes an entity in itself.
Yeah, there's that Neil Gaiman book, American Gods, that kind of holds that view, right? That our prayers are what feed the gods in a way to be gods. So
right,
yeah,
if everybody's praying to a single thing, then that thing is gonna absorb all the energy from everyone, and it's millions of people praying. So
yeah. So like Gordon Wasson has this sort of breakthrough experience, right? Himself, his first night. Was there anything there for you that like was it just reaffirming of your first mushroom journey, or was there a difference between kind of doing it on your own versus doing it in that container?
That first ceremony I had, after the ceremony was done, Natalia said, "I'm a little tired, so I'm just gonna relax." And she lay down on the bed. I stayed in the room, and I spent the rest of the night pretty much talking with her grandson. He was like, I don't know, like back then he was like 15 or something, 16 years old.
Yeah.
I was in my early 20s, or 17 he was, I don't know, he was still a minor. But we were having conversations about life and like things that he did with his family there. So it became very revealing for me about the way of life they have, the difficulties they face, financial struggles, like a lot of things that put my own life into perspective, and being able to travel and to do things and have access to things. And sometimes I think I would have taken it for granted back then, because
so it sounds like humbling in a way, and sort of
right. It's like, and I don't know, it sort of awakened the kind of like the inspiration of being more helpful to others and try to make others life a little easier. I guess.
Brought that spirit of kind of giving or compassion in a bit.
Right.
And then you keep coming back to is like, well, you say 5 years until she said you could make the movie, right?
Right. So I came back those 5 years, those first 5 years, I probably came back like 10 times or 8 times or something like that.
Yeah.
I would go because I had the access to get free flights.
Oh, from your friend's friend?
Yeah, that continued. That actually continued till today. I just came back a couple of days ago from down there.
Yeah.
So that thing of flying for free back and forth to Oaxaca is still happening.
Yeah. What is this, like 20 years or how long? 15 years later or something? Yeah.
Well, it's been 20 years. Yeah, 1997. It was the first time. So it's 14 years. 24 years actually.
Yeah. So you keep coming back, and I imagine part of you is coming back for yourself, but also for the movie, like
right, to continue being in touch with her and gaining her trust little by little, I guess.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference for folks, right? Like in Western therapy, it's sort of 1 or 2 psychedelic sessions is considered good, but here you are going back for many years. Like, what did you notice developing a more long-term relationship with the Valeda and the ceremony there?
Well, if I like the very first time, or one of the first things that I had to deal with is that my father died when I was 17. I turned 18 at the funeral, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And, that took a toll on me, and, just being sad and like why my dad had to die so young, and
like why this happened to you, sort of, and yeah.
Right. So one of the first things that I deal with on those mushroom ceremonies was the grief of losing my father at a young age.
Yeah.
That was one of the very first things.
Yeah.
And then it became more about discovering spirituality, trying to understand how this thing worked.
You figured that one out?
Sort of, but not at a physical level, but I think at an emotional and understanding of how to use them, I think I had pretty well now.
Yeah.
After a few years of going back, she told me, listen, I already show you and told you and teach you everything that I know. It's like, you can do the mushrooms on your own over there in the United States if you feel like the need to do them.
Yeah.
You don't need to come back all the way here. And then she added, of course, I like you coming down here because I like seeing you. I like it when you come and visit me.
Yeah.
But don't be dependent on me because I'm not going to be here forever. And you already know what you need to know in order for you to
And did you
do this.
Did you take that advice of kind of holding it yourself while you were in the
States?
Yeah.
I had, but at the same time, I'd rather go back. I like it. I like doing it with her. I like her presence. It's so powerful. And
yeah, what about her presence spoke to you? Like when you're with her.
She's just very observant.
Yeah.
And just like that, and she can tell a lot of the things from people by their mannerisms, by the way they react at the mushroom. For example, one thing that you mentioned is that people that usually end up in fetal position when they eat the mushrooms, when they have a hard experience and they end up at a fetal position. To them, it means that person particularly has an addiction problem.
Oh, okay.
To either tobacco, alcohol, or other substance.
Yeah.
Things like if you see spiders and insects roaming on the floor or on the altar, for example, that has a meaning that someone is doing something against you.
Oh, yeah.
Someone's trying to harm you.
There's that beautiful scene in the movie, right, where I forget the guy's name, but from Mexico, names that he's seeing insects. And Natalia very sweetly starts wiping off the altar and wiping them off.
Right.
And it was so seamless, at least the way you edited it, of her just, oh, there's insects here. I'll clean these off right now.
Right.
Yeah. I loved watching that. Like it was.
But the thing is that the person that is under the effects of the mushroom, he's actually seeing the insects being pushed.
Yeah, he's witnessing it being cleared off, right?
Right.
Yeah, and who knows Natalia's experiencing that moment either, right? So, yeah.
She was not under the mushrooms. She didn't eat them that night.
Oh, the night you filmed, she didn't take them herself?
Not every. The thing is that I'm going to tell you something. You probably think that all the 6 people in the movie had the mushrooms the same night, and
you had some editing tricks. Yeah.
They're separate. If you see them, they're never together on a single shot.
Oh, okay. Was it each person on their own, or were you a small group?
Except the couple.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't even pick that up. I watched it a few times. I didn't even notice. That's good editing.
Yeah, I didn't know either until after I released the movie and I started getting that feedback.
Yeah.
I didn't plan it for people to think that it happened in a single night.
Mm-hmm.
But it does not affect the storyline or anything. So
no. Yeah.
So yeah, the reality of things is that we filmed it. We did 3 nights in a row, and then we had a break in between, and then we did another 3 nights.
Oh, okay. So each of those people were there for the week sort of filming and one night of ceremony?
Yes, they were there for the whole week for one night, yeah.
So if we move forward to like when, like what happened when Natalia said yes? Was that like convincing her, or did she just
When
decide?
she said yes to shoot the movie,
Yeah, like what happens then for you?
well, when she said yes, I started like putting everything together.
Did she let
Money,
you know why she changed her mind, or was it just kind of let's do it
uh,
now?
it could have been because it was a little more open. 5 years went by, and it was a little more accepted to talk about it. You
Yeah,
know, nowadays it's 100% accepted to talk about it. It's very unlikely. Like, for example, if you go to Outla, I can guarantee you that somebody is going to approach you and
yeah,
offer you to sell you mushrooms
yeah, yeah.
within your first 15 to 20 minutes of arrival.
So the culture's
Okay.
really changed in the last 15 years.
Back then, that would not happen.
Mm-hmm. Like for you, right? You got off the bus and there was no one there.
No, like I was actually naive enough to think that there was going to be a sign or something like mushroom
Yeah.
ceremonies here.
Yeah, like
No.
neon little mushroom, like let's go here.
Yeah, but obviously that was not there.
Yeah. Yeah. So then what's the process of like putting this film together? I mean, if you were to do the short version, like, so I imagine there's a lot involved in finding the participants, funding, and all of that. Like,
Yes, once I got the okay, I put an ad on Craigslist.
oh, you put an ad out on like, do you want to go to Mexico and do some mushrooms with the healer?
And mushrooms in a ceremony.
Oh, I love that, man. And did you like? Did
And
you vet some people, or were those six
you
people?
know,
Those six?
not a lot of people replied.
Yeah, yeah.
But I did get like 10 replies,
Okay.
and I selected 5 out of the 10.
Uh huh.
And then another 2 came through another sort, through like a friend of a friend.
Yeah. I love those are like those are Craigslist people there. They did seem like an interesting mix of folks. So that like kind of
Well, I sort of like did it on purpose, you know.
yeah.
I wanted to have 3 men, 3 women.
Mm-hmm.
The ages go from like, I think 19, it was the youngest one, all the way to like 67 or something.
Yeah.
There was a middle-aged man. There was like a mid-20s couple, a teenager still, because she was 19,
Yeah.
or 20, I don't know. And then, or was she 21 already?
I
I don't
don't know.
know.
Yeah.
She's
She's
very
young.
young, very young.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other ones are like 26, and the other guy is 27. And then Sergio, he was in his 40s.
Yeah.
And then
And people come in for different reasons too. Like it seemed like there was
right,
not just a diversity of age or different things, but like different reasons for wanting to be there, whether that's addiction or kind of grief and divorce, or not clear what to do with one's life, or emotional regulation. Just seemed like there was sort of a
right,
whole gamut of things that people were bringing to Natalia to get help with.
right.
Yeah.
Yes. So after that, I put together some money for to go shoot for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to put together $20,000 to go and do this
Yeah,
for
yeah.
2 weeks. Pay for everyone's expenses. I didn't pay anyone
You
as
didn't.
far as like a salary.
Mm-hmm.
My crew, the crew, I did pay the crew a little, but they were more excited to come, and they wanted to do the mushrooms themselves. So there was a day for the crew to
Yeah, yeah.
to do the mushrooms.
The mushrooms
And
were the payment all along, it seems.
yeah, all the crew did it together at the end.
Yeah.
And it's very enlightening for some of them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I was with them. I didn't take them, but I was with them. And it was interesting seeing everybody there too, doing it. And I think that was like the main reason why everybody joined, because the project was like kind of like different and
Yeah, and this is kind of
unique in that sense.
early in the like psychedelic renaissance, whatever you want to call it, that's happening, right? Like
Right.
it
This is
seems
2007.
yeah. So it seems these movies are coming out more and more, like whether that's in
Yeah,
ayahuasca ceremonies or whatever else is happening. Like,
yeah.
did you have consideration in how to kind of capture the ceremony, both from like an artistic point of view, but also maybe from respect for the ceremony? Like, what was your thinking going
Yes.
into that?
Yes, I had two cameras rolling at all times,
Yeah.
and because it's so a ceremony, like if you sit through a whole ceremony, could be quite boring because sometimes nothing is happening
Yeah.
outside, everything's happening inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also told my camera guys that sometimes things pop up or happen randomly and suddenly. So they needed to be ready to capture and to adapt fast, because it was getting boring. And then after 3 nights, staying the whole night, and then we had a break, but then we had another 3 nights, the fifth and sixth nights, like everybody was tired because we were filming during the day and then filming the whole night. So it was pretty exhausting. But we did it, and then in 2008, I went to Switzerland, to Basel, Switzerland, for the World Psychedelic Forum, and that's where I interviewed Jeremy Narby, Stan Groff.
Yeah.
Back here in LA, I interviewed Dr. Charles Grob from UCLA. And that happened a year later. And then I started editing, and it was so difficult to edit, so difficult. I have English, I have Spanish, and I have Mazatec. My first job with the editing, I hired probably like 30 people.
30 people. Wow. Yeah.
Because I had 100 hours of footage, and I had them transcribe everything that was said. And then I had the Mazatec translated to Spanish, and I had a transcript of absolutely every single thing that was said and recorded.
So you had like a timestamp transcript, and then you need to go through the process of
start, when does it end, what he was saying.
Yeah. Oh man, that sounds exhausting.
I gave a color. I gave a different color to every single character.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so then I started cutting little pieces of paper and putting them together on my wall.
Making your storyboard in a way.
Making actually more like a script.
A script, okay, yeah.
Because it's dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's multicolor, and I'm editing that way on the wall with papers. And I read everything, all the pages, and then I started like moving the little papers around and blah, 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 blah. And then when I read the whole thing and it made sense, that took me like a whole month doing that on the wall before actually getting to the computer or any footage.
So like to me, it's interesting that the words, right, are the shaper of the story more so than the visual in a way. And I imagine you get the visual from the timestamp of the words to kind of fill it out.
Yeah, at this moment I don't know what the visual looks like.
Yeah, you have like a verbal story that then like yeah.
Right. So once I liked how it read, I went to the computer, I checked the stamps, and I started putting everything together. And I had one layer with one camera and another layer with the other camera.
Yeah.
All synced. So that first cut was 3 hours long.
What's the final cut at the end?
An hour and a half.
Okay, so you had to really kind of edit it down from there.
So I like it, but 3 hours is very long. So I edited again on the wall. And then I went back to the computer.
Yeah.
And it was 2 hours long. Okay. And that's the one that I like, but 2 hours long. And I sent it to a few festivals, and it got picked up by a festival in Texas. Don't recall the name. It's at a university near Dallas, Texas, Devon, Texas. I don't recall.
Yeah,
There's a university there. So I went to that film festival, and the director of the festival said to me, you know, I really love your movie, but it's 2 hours long. I was considering not putting it on the lineup because it's 2 hours long. I believe if you cut it down to an hour and a half, you have better success with the film festivals. And I'm like, why is that? I don't get it. What difference does it make? And basically, it's a scheduling thing with the movie theaters.
Oh, that's yeah.
A 2 hour movie can screen probably 4 times a day, while an hour and a half movie can screen 5 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as making money or revenue out of projecting a movie in the movie theaters or at a film festival, the more movies you can project in a single day, the better.
So you go and you cut it down and kind of do.
So after that film festival, I cut it down to an hour and a half. And that's the one I released.
Yeah.
And the whole editing process took about 8 months. Color correction at the end, and then it was ready.
Yeah. Well, what was that? I mean, that's a long journey, right? In a way, from the first time you kind
of. Because at the beginning I had my day job in advertising, and you know, the editing of a movie requires full-time focus, a lot of attention to detail.
Yeah.
And having a full-time job and wanting to edit the whole movie on the side was just not working at all.
Mm-hmm.
So at that moment, I got a grant from something that was called back then All Roads Film Project for National Geographic.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me a grant, and then with that money, I was able to really start editing. And that's when I hired the people to do the transcription. I hired an assistant. I bought some editing equipment. With that small grant, I was able to really finish the movie and really like not work on my day job for like that time for 8 months, 9 months, and focus solely to the movie.
Yeah. And then when you release it, like, it seems just like a long journey in a way, you know, from that first night in Santa Barbara when you have this is what I want to make a movie about for, and like 7 or 8 years. It's
an 18-year journey from the time that night in Santa Barbara until the movie was released.
Yeah. Well, that must have been quite a moment to like actually put it out there. Like, what was
it? Because also, you know, it became once I realized that it was coming out, it's like, oh, now I'm gonna be talking publicly about this subject. I wonder how is it gonna be taken?
How it's gonna be received or whatnot.
Yeah. So I started feeling some anxiety about it, and if I really wanted that, but I'm like, I don't have a choice anymore. I already did it.
Yeah, you put the thing in the world, right? And then the world decides what it does with it.
So it's nerve-wracking, you know, putting it out, because it, like, you know, I don't know.
What was the reception? Like, how was it received?
I think it was really good. To my surprise, it was really good. I really enjoyed touring with it and going to multiple cities to screen it.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing the different type of crowds from one city to another. That was pretty amazing, that experience.
Did Natalia get a chance to watch it herself? Or?
Yes, actually, she said, before you show it to anybody else, before you put it out, I need you to come back and bring it to me, and I want to see it.
Uh-huh.
So I did that. Before I put it out, I went to Outla. We played the movie on the computer. She watched the whole thing from beginning to end. And then she said "Tokui," which means it's good.
Oh, Yeah. That must have felt good to get that stamp of
Yeah,
approval, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
cool. So what, like, and when we initially talked, right, was I come to you because of this movie because I'm drawn to it, right? Like
Hmm.
partially from the being a therapist and psilocybin therapy, but also
Right.
the Christian element. Like I've reconnected to Christianity in my life, and like I had this sense that like mushrooms and Jesus get along.
Right.
And like it's been confirmed internally, and also watching your movie and some of the stuff that's coming out in the world now with like I don't know if you've read The Immortality Key. There's just like a lot of speculation around what was the role of psychedelics in early Christianity,
Hmm.
and it was definitely at least a part of medieval European Christianity. So
I agree with that.
yeah. So like I have this, like when I watch this movie, a part of me is feeling like I'm watching early Christianity in a way. Like the
Hmm.
ironically like colonial process of bringing Catholicism and kind of overlaying Catholic imagery and saints onto indigenous practice, like it feels like resurrected in a way, like maybe a Christian practice. So
Yeah, I don't know.
that's just my own, like when I watch it,
Yeah.
like I'm like, oh look, that's just, there's a beautiful irony of like, oh maybe this is what Christianity might have looked like going to homes, right? It was thought to happen in the
It's possible.
home.
I mean, there's many depictions that
Yeah,
show mushrooms, on
yeah,
Christian imagery.
yeah, lots of mushrooms, and this thought that the early Christianity happened in the home and was held by women mostly too. So there's just, I don't know, it's a bit of a tangent, but like I'm drawn to you because of that. But then it seems after you
Hmm.
release the movie, like your life goes in a different direction in ways because of the movie.
You could say that.
Yeah,
You could say that. I still work in
yeah,
advertising.
you still got to make a living and stuff, right? But like,
Um, I'm still doing that, and yeah, after touring, I went to several cities on the West Coast, on the East Coast, in Texas, and Mexico, and um, becoming a public figure, basically as a public speaker. I got invited to the Telluride Mushroom Festival twice. I
mm,
was in a panel there with Dennis McKenna,
oh,
and
you're talking with the mushroom people then.
yes, I was invited to be on this panel with these very, very experienced people. I actually was the youngest one on the panel.
Yeah,
Uh, and that was quite something, an honor for me to be with them,
mm-hmm.
Um, there were several people there, very knowledgeable about the subject and with a lot of experience as
Yeah.
well. Um, yeah, I mean, nowadays, I don't know if my life did change. Let's say change in a way that I became sort of like the guy that has the knowledge in Woutla or something like that. Like the guy that has been there several times. And,
Do people reach out to you sometimes like, hey, how do I,
oh, quite often, man.
yeah,
At least,
does that get
yeah.
annoying a little bit to have
Before
to,
it was when I was actively speaking. Yeah, it was quite often.
yeah.
I actually got last week. I got one. The week before I got one. Yeah, it's frequent that I get emails or messages on Facebook or Instagram. People asking me how to get to Outlaw or who they
Whoa,
talk
what's
to
your sort
get
of
there.
generic response when people reach out?
I tell them, like, the main thing to tell them is like, you gotta be there between May and September.
Like be there in this
That's
after the wet season when they grow.
Yeah, that's when the season. Otherwise, I mean, you can go there, but it will be very difficult to find the mushrooms if you
Yeah,
not go in the season.
yeah. So so when we've talked before, like you were like initially engaged in some project around kind of building a hotel and kind of developing, almost becoming part of the mushroom economy there, like the mushroom tourism economy,
Yeah,
but then
that
that
was
shifted.
and yeah, it shifted, man. It
Yeah,
was an idea to have a space that we will be able to have rooms for people wanting to come and do ceremony.
Yeah.
And provide a space for that to happen. However, it became evident that that was a very risky move, because at least in Huautla, the mushroom ceremony is considered sacred. It's not something to profit from. And I felt that as foreigners or non-Huautlans, it could be misinterpreted really easy if people realize that we are promoting or, making money off something that is traditionally part of their culture, not mine.
And there's a mixture, from what I understand, there around people that do offer to foreigners and then people that don't, like different healers. And
there's every healer, just like doctors, they have their list of patients, and they're limited to the amount of people they can see.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other healers that only work with their own family members. Okay. And then there's a few like Natalia that open up to working with visitors from other parts of Mexico or other countries. But for the most part, every single family has at least one elder that practices this.
That's sort of how the tradition's maintained in a way, that it's a family lineage.
Right. And it's passed verbally. There is no books or like instructions, and some curanderos or curanderas specialize in one type of healing and one type of illness or condition or this and that. Mm-hmm. And it's not easy for anyone to like actually find someone that is truthful, because there's also there's a third one. I mean, we say two, but I think there's a third one, which is the ones that are fake. The ones that are looking
the plastic shaman or whatever that's just trying to kind of make money off of it.
Exactly. And there's some of those too. People in town know who they are, and how they operate. But as a foreigner, if you're not familiar with who's who, it will be very easy to fall in the wrong hands. Mm-hmm. And because the type of ceremony and the type of experience that the mushroom gives you, that could also be detrimental if you are in the wrong hands.
Kind of bad medicine or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Like, people don't always have the best intentions when they bring you into those states or planes.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're involved in like a language project now. Like, it goes from a kind of
yes.
How does that evolve, and like share about that?
Well, the pandemic brought a lot of changes in everyone's life, including mine. And one of the things that I decided with this project is to stop. We stopped entirely. Mm-hmm. Because when the pandemic started getting really bad, we stopped the construction of this building.
So you're building like a hotel and kind of
It's like a 6-bedroom mini boutique hotel. That was the plan. Mm-hmm. That like after reflecting on it and really thinking about it, I decided that was probably not the best thing to do, especially if the goal was to help the Mazatecs. Mm-hmm. That was not it. Because the goal of a project like that, it will be to help foreigners or people from other places. It will create probably some work for some locals.
There are like a lot of locals. How many kind of people you hire for ceremony or working in the hotel, right? And kind of upkeep and food, but like it's a limited sort of scope of who that helps in the region.
Right. So, especially because of the possibility of being misunderstood as something that we were doing for profit, mm-hmm. which I think it was going to happen.
Yes.
I decided to open a foundation, an educational foundation that will help directly the youth and adolescents, Mazatecs from low resources,
Mm-hmm.
What happens down there is a lot of the parents send the kids to work because they need to make money instead of sending them to school.
Yeah.
So with this project, I'm planning on incentivizing them so they can bring some money home and they don't get sent to work.
Like in a way, pay them to go to school.
Pay them to go to school.
Yeah.
And then pick up some of the brightest kids to come and learn their own language first. Very important because, as I told you before, it's like kind of like disappearing.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick rate of loss.
It's
right?
very quick.
Yeah.
I'll give it another 20 years and there'll be very few people.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot, like if everyone's having cell phones, there's not a lot of websites and stuff that are probably in Mazatec, right? And there's a high incentive to I imagine Spanish or other languages.
Right. And it's only spoken in that area. So it's like if you go somewhere else, that language is not useful.
Yeah. You even in your phone when you're going somewhere else, right? That language is
right.
not useful. So
right.
Yeah.
So we want to teach them computers, English, their own language, like I said, and also media, like how to use a camera, how to shoot, how to do simple three-way lighting and that kind of stuff. And that way we can create an archive, a documentary archive of the multiple hundreds of curandeiros that live in that area.
Yeah.
And with that archive, we will have access to understanding those rituals better and maybe adapt certain things of those rituals to our own personal rituals.
Yeah.
If not everything, because
it's not all. I mean, for me, watching your movie changed my ritual with mushrooms too, from like blindfold and music to sitting in front of my altar, because I spent a lot of time in Zen, in the world of Zen, doing meditation retreats, and we have altars there, and I have an altar in my home. And I watched your movie and I was like, oh, like this is a different way. And I, took a mushrooms and just sat in front of my altars to see like what would happen. And it was a very different experience. And it reminded me more of like my experience in meditation or Zen, more upright, more discipline, a bit more like strength involved than just kind of letting go. So I was very appreciative just to you of like opening my eyes to other ways of like ceremonially and also in a healing way relating to the mushrooms. So I thank you for that. And like what you're saying, I imagine will open up many other ways of at least trying to understand how like I or others can hold. Because it feels like in the Renaissance, right, that's happening, we're trying to figure out like how do we, as like Westerners, at least for me, like relate to these substances in a way that respects them and like honors what's possible. Not just give them to vets for PTSD, but if you look at like where in Oaxacan, like it's not just for psychological issues, right? Like people come for healing for all types of issues. And
correct. That is because the belief is that physical illnesses manifest first at an energy level.
Yeah, like spiritual down to physical in a way. Yes.
If you catch an illness when it's at the energy stage, let's call it.
Stage or plane or whatever. Right?
And eliminate it, get rid of it, the body won't get ill. But if you don't do anything about it, then that energy will materialize into form of illness.
Yeah. So like what so the foundation, from what I understand, has like two parts maybe or more, but like kind of working with the youth to kind of train them both English and media and help preserve the language and this other
and
goal.
Then eventually they'll be able to tell their story, their cultural and traditions, communicate those traditions with the, let's say, the international community, use English to communicate with anybody because that's the language that is spoken, by every country,
But then it sounds like there's more involved too with art and like an outward face to the rest of the world with the foundation.
Yes, I actually the last 6 months, 5 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
that's when actually everything became more evident of what this project was going to be. So I decided to open the foundation and going through all the process that you had to go, like registering with the Secretary of Economy,
Yeah.
doing all the taxes and registration, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It was so grueling
Yeah. Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. It was,
Well, thank you for doing that, Oliver. Thank you, man. And then
yeah,
you're at the next
yeah.
stage now.
So yeah, I was saying the foundation. So I went through all this process to register. I finally finished last week
Last
with all
week.
the papers.
Yeah.
Yes, I came back from Mexico to LA right now, but I need to go back and still open a bank account for the foundation. And right now I'm working on creating a campaign for fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
And parallel to that, I got approached by the same guy that I met, the Oaxacan guy that I met 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I got approached by him and he said, like, Oaxaca is really hot right now. It's like everybody wants to come to Oaxaca from all over the world. And art is being sold and moved, and there's a high interest in Oaxacan made art.
Mm-hmm.
So let's bring art to the United States and put it for sale as a business.
Yeah.
And like that sounds like a nice business, very different from what I've done before. I don't know much about art dealing or anything of that, but I can certainly help with all the digital part of it, the websites and all the other stuff that I've been doing all my life, promoting products and working for multinational brands and stuff. So I have the knowledge to do that. So I'm like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So, we opened a company. It's a for-profit company called Kundavi Art here in California. The company, even though it's for profit, it is also a purpose-driven company, which means that 100% of the profit is going to be donated to the foundation.
Oh, it's like a for-profit that's filtered into the nonprofit.
We'll have our own small salary so we can operate.
Yeah.
But anything that's on top of our
operational cost,
will be donated to the foundation.
Yeah.
The IRS in the United States works in a way that you can donate up to 50% of your profit and it will be tax deductible, but you will have to pay taxes on the other 50%. So at the end of the day, I think we're looking at paying anywhere between 12 and 15% taxes of our total profit, and the rest will have to go to the foundation in Mexico.
Yeah. I mean, so much. So many people maybe travel and connect to psychedelics in other cultures, right? Or healing rituals, and then do what you initially did, right? Of try to build a center or some way to help.
Right.
But then for you, it seems like it's turned 180 now. And like, how do you help the culture that helped you in a way, almost?
Yeah, I sense that, okay, if this psychedelic renaissance is so hyped and everybody is into it and everybody is talking about it, I feel that it's important to give back to the community where everything comes from. Everything, like if it wasn't because of Gordon Wasson happened to meet Maria Sabina and she agreed to see him, and information came out. That's the reason why the psychedelic renaissance exists in the first place.
I mean, that's why you have Timothy Leary and then Ram Dass,
right.
And all there's a wide chain of events that happened from that meeting there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if anyone is interested in giving back to this project, it is a way to directly help Mazatec youth and adolescents, to push them to study, and to have people to continue learning Mazatec. Yeah. It's sad, but it's disappearing. I can guarantee you, I've seen it. There's less and less people talking about it. And if the language disappears, a lot of the mushroom language or a lot of the mushroom knowledge and the ways the mushroom is understood by their traditions will also disappear.
Yeah, if like a grandson can't understand his grandmother and it's an oral tradition, it will not be maintained.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So I believe it's important to try to, I'm not going to say avoid them from happening, because I think even though whatever I do, it will eventually disappear, because languages disappear is not uncommon.
Yeah, this is a thing that happens over time.
But at least I like to have the opportunity to create this archive with these kids.
Yeah.
So there is a record of these traditions, and for posterity, for other people that are interested in learning about this. I think it's a project that could create that, very well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that, man. For making a COVID.
So the Kundabi art project, I want to talk about these pieces I have here.
Yeah.
This bee.
Yeah, and this is like
made of
a bronze bee you have there. That's like
bronze bee,
football size almost. Is that heavy when you hold it, or is it?
It's about 13 pounds.
Yeah.
I have this other owl right here, also from a Oaxacan artist called Manuel Miguel.
Is that on? What is he sitting on? A dog or a?
It's actually a lion.
A lion. Wow. Yeah.
Look, it has a mane on the back.
Yeah. That's awesome.
This is also bronze. It's also heavy. And I have this other piece over here from an artist called Jorge Gonzalez.
And these are local kind of
This is also bronze, really heavy. It's a woman. It's called Movement.
Mazatec artists that are also, it seems, contemporary in a way. They're making contemporary
art. They're not Mazatec. They're Oaxacan.
Oaxacan. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they're from different places in Oaxaca. Not only not Mazatecs.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah.
So when I started this project with my business partner, he is merely a commercial project, right? But I said, listen, I'm doing this other thing too, this foundation. So it'd be cool if we can actually create this company. Let's create it, but let's make it a for-purpose company. And he loved the idea. He was like totally on board since I brought it up. And the reason is because during the pandemic, he did the same thing with some fishermen from the coast of Oaxaca. And he started supporting them in a way so they could actually sell their fish in Oaxaca City. So he will go to get fish from them, bring it to Oaxaca City, and then people will eat fish in the city.
Yeah, rather than shipping it out to other areas or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So when he created that for-purpose project to help the fishermen, instead of just being a merely commercial, like I sell fish in the city, when he shifted the focus to be a project for purpose project to help the fishermen, everything changed. Everything changed in the way people were participating, because it was more about helping than making money.
Yeah.
Like in a way, increased.
Yeah, like in a way, it does better when it's trying to help. It flows easier, is what I'm hearing.
Right.
Yeah.
So the same thing, the same idea we applied to these pieces, and we talked to the artists about the mushroom project and about the education project and everything, and they love the idea. Everybody that I talked to, I'm so surprised because I'm not part of the art. I was not, now I am, but I was not part of the artistic community in Oaxaca. Now a lot of people know me. And I'm still to meet a bunch of people. I have a list of people that I'm yet to meet. There is this other artist that they make alebrijes that they're going to be working with us. They're called Jacobo y Maria. Let's see. Jacobo y María Ángeles. Jacobo y María Ángeles is the alebrije artist, and alebrijes are like wood carvings painted by hand.
Oh yeah.
Similar to what you see in the movie Coco from Pixar.
Yeah.
So they just had an exhibit at the Rockefeller Center a couple of weeks ago, and there's a huge alebrije in the front of the building. It's really amazing art pieces. They're going to be working with us. Right now, these pieces, they're going to go for an auction pretty soon.
Yeah, and if people want to connect to these art pieces or like support the kind of art aspect of this, like where can they connect with you at?
It's going to be, the website is kundabi.art.
Okay, yeah. And I'll link that on the show notes for this. So
Right. It's still not up. It's still a work in progress.
Yeah. It'll be there in the future.
By the time this comes out, it should be available.
Yeah.
So these 3 pieces are gonna go for sale. I have 2 paintings coming, one from an artist named Guti, and another one also from Manuel Miguel. They're beautiful pieces. I really like them.
I love the kind of the circular quality of this in a way, like the artist, you're supporting the artist, and then in supporting the artist, it's supporting the foundation, and like in supporting the foundation, it's supporting the culture and making new artists, right? Media artists or different people, and like there's pulling from many different aspects, which I find really beautiful in what you're doing.
That's what I like. So we currently have 16 artists signed with us on the project. When I come back to Oaxaca in a couple of weeks, my plan is to sign another 15. We're getting the pieces.
And when should you roll forward with working with the kiddos? Like, is there plans for how that'll kind of play out?
The building needs to be completed.
And will that become a type of school in a way rather than a kind of lodging? Yes.
Right. So we need to buy desks, buy computers.
Get the computers and probably some teachers.
Yes. Actually, I have a meeting with the person that I think is going to be the director of the school.
Yeah.
And then the teachers will come through that person.
Yeah.
I have a very good recommendation from a teacher that is a director that is 100% fluent in Spanish and Mazatec.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he's been a teacher all his life. So it seems so far, I'm excited. I haven't met him yet, so I haven't made a decision if he's the one, but I hope he's the one, because
I hope so too, so you don't have to search too long,
Right. The brief meeting we had, he seemed like a very agreeable man, and like easy to deal with it and responsible. So I got a good vibe.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a more formal meeting when I come back, and I obviously have a lawyer, an accountant, all the.
It's happening.
All the things that are required. And now I have a bunch of artists backing me up, local artists backing my project up to make it happen, to make it a reality.
Well, I wish you all the best with the project.
Yeah.
And I do have one question that was kind of from earlier when we were talking, and you were naming sort of the holding these traditions and all the kind of information, and that we might like apply this to our lives, like if we're using the mushrooms. And I'm curious for you to just like what you see, like what you've learned from relating to the mushrooms in your own life, and like even the ceremony you might hold when you're in the States. Like, what do you think kind of is important that you've taken away?
As far as this, you're speaking about the ceremony itself?
Like if somebody was like, I've taken mushrooms with friends, or I've done it like with a blindfold on and music, but they wanted to kind of move a bit, what would you say they could do to kind of show respect to the mushroom, or like
I think,
from what you've learned kind of in your relationship with Natalia and others?
yeah, I think the most important thing is having a reason to do them. Or
Yes.
just do them
Yeah.
because you're curious.
Yeah.
Also, I did it because I was curious.
Yeah. Which isn't all. It's not always the worst reason, but
didn't even know what it was or what I was getting into.
Yeah.
So it happens different for everybody, and there's no right or wrong way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
However, I do believe, for example, you go to a music festival or something, and you decide to take them among a big crowd and music and neon lights and this and that. So it becomes that type of experience. To me, it could be beautiful in the sense that the visuals
could
are beautiful,
make the experience more beautiful in a way, or like add to the experience.
But it's very shallow at the same time.
Yeah.
If you instead have a reason why you want to do them, that could go from healing to giving thanks,
Yeah, to gratitude. Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be because you're sick or you're experiencing mental trauma or emotional trauma. It doesn't always have to be that. People do it also just to thank God, or to have the opportunity to talk to Lady of Guadalupe, or to sit in prayer. Sometimes people do it for someone else, like someone else that's sick. I remember this guy that I know told me this story that at his house, his grandma was really ill, and basically she was in bed, and a bunch of members from the family got around her, sit around her. They ate the mushrooms, and all they did was pray for that person that was ill.
That's so beautiful.
The whole night while they're on the mushroom experience.
Yeah.
So there's many different ways to do it, but I think if you have a reason to do them and you're clear of the question that you have for the mushroom, you'll have a more in-depth experience and an opportunity to explore the self and explore your good and bad deeds, I guess.
Oh yeah, the reckoning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all. Yeah, it was really cool to hear Oliver's story. I just love that, it just unfolds for him. Like he goes to the library, kind of does the deep dive on the mushrooms and Gordon Watson, Marina Sabina, and kind of I can never say it. Huatla. My grandma would be so sad. My grandma speaks Spanish. She would be so sad at my pronunciation. But the town in Oaxaca, where Marina Sabina's from. And then he meets a guy that's like, oh, I'll send you there. And on his first day of arriving, he meets Natalia, who ends up kind of being his guide and healer and teacher in the ways of the mushroom. So I just find that really beautiful the way it unfolded. But then at the same time, it took him 5 years and then 7 or 8 years to make the movie. So it's interesting how things can be really quick and slow at the same time. So yeah, I really do encourage you to check out the projects that Oliver's working on. There's links in the show notes to the Kundavi art project and a Spiral Mazteco foundation that he's working on. Once again, really sorry about the pronunciation, but you'll see the spelling in the show notes. And yeah, maybe I could one day work on my Spanish. But yeah, once again, thanks to Oliver for taking the time, and I do hope you enjoyed and are kind of here in the middle of the holiday season, kind of enjoying family or dealing with family, whichever one it is for you. So yeah, be well. Till next time. Bye.